With the release of a new episode or expansion, it's pretty standard to expect some shakeups in the meta. It's often the time Bungie tries to reevaluate certain abilities, playstyles, and weapons, see what isn't working and try and modernize them, bringing them into the current meta. And Heresy looks no different. We're seeing a lot of changes for abilities and weapons. We're getting a lot of new aspects for each character, 2 Arc ones and a Void one for Hunters, as well as a whole new Arc keyword, Bolt Charge, which is really interesting because Arc has always been somewhat behind the other subclasses in my opinion, in terms of both its capabilities and its build crafting potential, so Bolt Charge does have the potential to add quite a bit to the game. For anyone unaware, we still don't have Bolt Charge yet, although it will be releasing very, very soon after this video. But from what it's been described as, it's a positive buff applied to the player that stacks over time, and upon reaching a max charge, the next ability attack will create a similar effect to Ignitions, but for Arc. A lot smaller, but that same kind of damage. Bolt Charge can also be applied to weapons. Through the use of aspects, fragments, and even weapon perks, there'll be ways for us to apply Bolt Charge to our guns. And this new keyword is exactly what I mean by Bungie modernizing weapons. We're seeing weapons like Wardcliffe Coil, which is very situational but a decent weapon, getting Bolt Charge. Its new intrinsic will grant 1 stack of Bolt Charge to all nearby allies for every 2 rockets fired, as a total of 4 stacks per trigger pull. This means Wardcliffe could be used in a DPS scenario to help boost the fire team around you and increase their overall damage potential. Weapons like Cloudstrike and Thunderlord are also getting Bolt Charge added into their kit, which is really surprising. Those weapons are pretty great as they stand, and I'm sure the overall Arc subclass changes is going to make them even stronger, so giving them Bolt Charge, again, it just feels like more of a way to modernize these weapons for the current sandbox. But with all that said, I was looking through this huge update that Bungie released, and I kind of feel like there's a certain weapon that's missing here. Same as Cloudstrike and Thunderlord, and even Wardcliffe, Riskrunner is a great weapon, but it's incredibly situational. And it also just kind of feels like a weapon that's been left in the past. It's fairly popular with players, but it's missing a lot of that modernization. It still feels like an early Destiny 2 weapon. A lot of players have been suggesting for a while now that it should be given Jolt, which I don't think it needs. It's one of those weapons that's just, it's really great when it's used in the right situation, and I don't think Jolt will do much to add to that, other than maybe tipping the scale a little bit too far to where it's just the only weapon you should use in any activity that has arc damage. But the introduction of Bolt Charge interested me because that could be what Riskrunner has felt like it's been missing. For those unaware of how Riskrunner works, it mainly revolves around its perk Arc Conductor. When taking arc damage, this weapon becomes more powerful and resists incoming arc damage. Kills extend the time in this overcharged state. It also has a secondary perk that means when Arc Conductor is active, shots have the chance to create chain lightning between enemies and return ammo back to the weapon. Now again, this chain lightning is different from Jolt. It has no synergy with anything in the Arc subclass at the moment. It's also worth mentioning that this weapon does have a catalyst, but all it does is increase its range, which isn't too useful in like a PvE setting, especially since SMGs tend to be quite close quarters. So with a weapon that relies so heavily on not just taking damage, but taking a specific type of damage in a game that's constantly expanding the types of damage you receive in any activity, it just feels like Riskrunner is becoming more and more niche. And I think Bolt Charge is the answer to broaden the sandbox on what Riskrunner could be used in. Whether this is added to Arc Conductor itself or the weapon's catalyst, I think it'd be really interesting if Bolt Charges could also activate Arc Conductor. This takes Riskrunner from a weapon that can only be used against Arc to a weapon that can now also be used with Arc. If you're building into the new Bolt Charge keyword, Riskrunner suddenly becomes a lot more interesting to use. Now, like with anything suggested for Destiny, this sounds like a simple change. I don't know how possible this is from a developer standpoint, or if this even is a direction the development team want to take this weapon. but I think for such a simple change opens so many doors for what can be done with Riskrunner in both PvE and PvP. But we're only a few days away from Heresy now, so I'm really interested to see how Bolt Charge itself is going to play in the sandbox. It's entirely possible that Bolt Charge completely dominates the meta for the next few weeks and Bungie will later scale it back. And it could also be that Bungie already has this idea in mind for Riskrunner and it just couldn't get implemented in time, or it's purposely being saved for a future act. I think we'll just have to wait and see, but I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below.